Welcome to this video on the Dwarf Star Stereo Delay Mark II by Blue Lantern Modules. This module is based on the delay from Blue Lantern's Dwarf Star semi-modular system from back in the day. This module can work great as a stereo delay with one or two inputs, thanks to some internal routing, and the module also works great as two nearly independent delay channels. This delay is very clean and does not clip when the delay is overdriven by feedback. I think that makes this delay a great addition to any rack, whether or not you already have a delay unit. That's because this unit has a really clean character and you don't develop all those harmonics from a clipping delay chip. This gives a tone more of a dense body and low end with less high end chatter. It's great for any instrument, tonal and percussive, and can give you a short plate reverb-like effect when all the way up, to a bit over a second when all the way down. We can then also push this time longer in various ways, which gives the audio a digitally degraded flavor the further you push it. You could skip to any section of the video using the time codes here. And we'll start with the overview. This is an 18 HP stereo delay module. It has two inputs, A and B. Input A is normal to input B, so when there is no input present in B, we get input A into there. Each channel has its own independent level control for the audio signal. We then have a repeat knob, also known as feedback in most other delays. This has its own CV input and level control for that CV. We then have two independent time knobs for each of the two delay chips in the module. Each of these times has CV control with its own attenuator. And here is where I think the module starts to get interesting and unique, is instead of having a dry-wet knob, we have an effects knob. With this, it always retains the full dry signal. When turned clockwise, it blends the delayed signal into the mix rather than crossfading between the two, like most other delays do. This is one reason I think this module can work great as a character-adding pre- or post-delay type effect, because it always retains that fully dry signal. We can patch it into or from another time-based effect module, like beads for example, or we can self-patch it into a two-stage delay. And then we have our spread knob, which actually works similar to the spread knob on the Concussion Plus, which I just covered in my previous video. Bing! The spread knob acts as your maximum spread point. And then we have a level control for that spread amount. There's no CV control for this because the spread is just an offset to the time settings, which you'll see in a bit. We then have our two outputs for channel A and channel B. And then we have our monitor output, which is actually a stereo headphone output with its own level knob. Pro tip, we can actually crank our monitor level and it gets us to near modular levels. And using a regular mono patch cable, we can get an additional output from channel A with this monitor output, which is great for self-patching or patching to two different effect units, so on and so forth. And the last thing that I think makes this module really great is this bypass circuit. There's a push button for manual bypass. You can see it turns on and off. And when turned off, it retains the tail of our delay, which is great for performing, and you want that delay to ring out without adding any new information into it. We then have a bypass input for triggers and gates. And then we have the toggle switch here. This allows for momentary effects where the effect is only present during a high gate signal. You can toggle it on and off for different sections of a song using a trigger into the toggle input, or even use it as an effects kill switch with the momentary setting in a high gate input. Now let's get a little more in depth and actually hear this thing. To best demonstrate this time-based audio effect, I'm actually going to take a page from DivKid's book, who I believe took a page from another person's book, on using a human speaking voice. In this case, counting from 1 to 8. And if you haven't watched any of Div Kid's videos, go check them out. It's awesome. They're like being informed on modules by Jon Snow. I am, however, changing this up a little bit by adding a little bit of musicality to the voice.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So here's the dry signal. I'm only using mono right now to best demonstrate the time.
2, 3, 4,
And it's dry right now.
7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So I'm going to just turn this all the way up so we can hear our time.
7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So we could actually go pretty long at the bass time here. And we can go pretty short to where it's almost like a plate reverb type effect, especially when we turn the repeat up.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And we can actually get that kind of bucket brigading type effect where it really builds up if we play with the effects and we lower it a little bit. See, we're getting that kind of overdrive, but it doesn't ever really clip, which gives an interesting effect than other delays. And there are actually trimmers on the back of the module for channel A and B where we can adjust the time to be either much longer, much shorter, really fine tune them, get them in tune, get them out of tune, whatever you want to do to really play around with the sound. But besides that, we can still push the time to those territories that we can with those back trimmers with the time CV input. Here I'm going to just put our time CV level all the way up, and I just have a constant offset voltage coming from maths right now that I'm messing around with off screen. So here's a positive voltage and here's a negative voltage.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
So we can see we can push it
2, 3,
to go much longer. And the longer we push it, the more degraded it gets in its kind of digital flavor to where it gets completely out of its buffer time, I believe, and it just can't process that slow.
5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3.
And we could actually get some of these sounds here, these cool bugle-esque clicking sounds, we could actually get without an audio input at all. Just turn the repeat up. So you can play with it a bit like a bucket brigade delay, but it has an interesting flavor to it. So the repeats knob works just as any feedback knob would work on any other delay, or it could be just called repeats on the other ones. It basically is the amount or amplitude of our output signal being fed back in to the input of that delay to near infinite levels. And we can get that feedback amount when we play with the delay or play with the effects level here, just below 100%. I'd say that's about 85%. But with our repeat all the way up, we can hear it gives it that nice, dreamy, lush feel where it just decays out naturally. It almost feels like a low-pass gate repeat to me, where it naturally decays like that light would, but in slower motion. We also have the CV input for repeats with a CV level attenuator here. So we have the level all the way up, and I'm going to just play off screen here again with some offset. So I'm really cranking the levels up positive now, and it's really doing some crazy things here. So if you want some cool effects to apply, where it really goes out of control, but it has some interesting character to itself. Here I'm all the way negative. Again, we have no repeats.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
best show the spread knob. I'm going to keep it in mono for now, and then we'll patch over to stereo. Basically what it does is it acts as an offset for both of our times in opposite directions. So when we have our time here and our spread level all the way off, it has our time here. If I turn this up, it's adjusting our time up with this level up. And same when we go down. So it's a good way to push this into territories we did with the CV by giving it that offset. Now it does the opposite for channel B. So when we go clockwise, it's actually turning this time knob counterclockwise and vice versa.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So we can hear,
2, 3, 4,
go slower.
5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And it goes faster when we go clockwise.
7, 8.
And the opposite
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
for channel B.
8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1,
So the reason there's no CV input for the spread is we already have it for the time. It's basically just a nice handy quick offset where we have two controls over, which is really, really nice. So we could get, with our spread, have both of these in tune. And we know they're in tune together. And then we could set our spread offset and have it off, and then we could turn it up and give us that offset, and then we could cut it off and go back to our nice synced up sound. Very similar to if we were just using, again, CV in those inputs.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The next and I think most unique part of this module is the bypass. We have a manual bypass here, which we can toggle or make momentary. Right now I have it at momentary, and it is always off until we hold it and then it is on. The light here indicates what it will be when we have it on the toggle. So if I switch on toggle, it'll be on right now and it'll be off now. The nice thing about the bypass here is it just cuts off the input, but it continues the tail of the delay. So that continues on nicely, which is great for performing and cutting your effects, which I'll show right now. Right now I have that voice sample kind of chopped up using the wavetable oscillator, going into a low pass gate here. You can hear what this sounds like. Just for some weird effects here. And I have the bypass on, momentary. So if I turn this on and have the effects up, you can hear that. I'll turn the delay a little longer so we could hear it trail a little bit longer. So we don't want to be doing that all the time. We could toggle, obviously, but say we want like a nice kill switch. What we can do is go to momentary here, and you can see I have positive voltage going into the bypass. This is actually from Math's end of cycle output, which I have a trigger going in to trigger that channel. So anytime my gate is high, this trigger goes off and it kills our delay input, triggering the bypass here. So we have a nice kill switch effect here that you could see each time this blue light goes off. A nice trail going off. The same thing will work for the toggle. Every time it receives a trigger, it'll toggle it on or off, indicated by this LED light right here. Here I have a two-stage delay patched in. My effects are off right now. I have this concussion going in to input A, I have output of A going into input B. So when we crank the effects here, we got our one delay time longer and the other delay time shorter. So one is giving that kind of plate reverb type effect, and this one is giving it a longer, almost 1 second delay, kind of pushing it to its max time. Let's turn the repeats up a little bit. And hear that effect. We get interesting rhythms going. And then we can push this even further and get that degraded flavor in the first one by pushing the spread here till we get a more digitized degraded time in the first one, and then we're delaying it normal and clean with the second one here. Push it to that feedback zone. Now that we got all the features and knobs and inputs and outputs done, let's make some music with it. And that is all for this video on the
Dwarf Star Delay.